For more on today's budget, I'm joined by Finance Minister Donna Harpauer. Thank you so much for joining me, Minister. This was the third and final year of a back-to-balance plan, and there is a balance now. How did the government achieve this?
You know, it's taken a lot of effort. We had to basically restructure where we received our revenues. So there was a number of very difficult decisions we had to make 3 budgets ago, and with the hope that change in structurally of where we got our revenues from would bring us back to balance. And it actually has. It has kept us on track. We had to move away from our reliance on resource revenue, quite frankly, because they had fallen $1.3 billion, which is a huge shortfall within our budgets. We didn't want to, do it all in 1 year. Obviously, that would have made for some pretty major cuts, and we don't think that would have served our citizens well. So we set forward with a 3-year plan, and we're happy that that 3-year plan is now come to fruition, and we are back to balance.
Speaking of revenues, much of that increase is coming out of PST changes. What would you say to consumers and taxpayers about that?
We do understand that we had to increase not only 1 percentage point of our PST, but also the PST base. However, when you take into account PST along with personal income tax, we are still much lower than we were a decade ago, and we are quite comparable to other provinces. We're among the lowest in taxation. For all of the provinces that have PST, we have the lowest PST in the country.
And so speaking of the balance, that did happen, but there is still debt and it continues to climb. How does the government plan on dealing with that?
So the concern that I've always expressed in the past has been the operating debt, because the operating debt is your credit card debt, if you may, it's unsupported. And I'm very pleased that our revenues exceed our expenses this year, and we will not be adding to that operating debt. Our Crown corporations also borrow, as do we borrow for infrastructure funding. That's no different than any other province. The Crown corporations, of course, are businesses, and so they have a business plan in which how they're going to make their payments for their debt going forward. And what the executive government does for their capital plan is we invest into sinking funds each and every year to make the future payments. So both of those debts are supported debt. And right now in this budget, we're going to have $2.4 billion invested for future payments for our capital plan. We're always mindful, though, that we are competitive and we keep that debt as a percentage of GDP. We watch that benchmark, and we're amongst the lowest in the country of debt to GDP ratio.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about education. $26 million over last year for K-12 education in this budget. There are still concerns from parents and teachers surrounding funding for education. What would you say to them?
You know, this is the largest investment in education in the province's history, and we know that we're among the highest per student funding in our country. So I would say that education is definitely a priority of our government, and we will review that with each and every budget. But adding $26 million back into our education budget does keep our strong position in education of being among the highest per student funding in the country.
Lastly, one of the bigger elements of this budget was an investment in mental health and addictions. Why did your party feel it was important to address that issue?
You know, we've heard it more and more. I think all of us as a society has heard it more about the need and the prevalence of mental health. So that was a priority for this budget. We've increased that funding by more than $30 million. That's going to increase addictions and mental health beds by 140. I'm really hoping that will help address some of the wait list, but we know there's more work that we're going to need to do in this area. And with each and every budget, I'm sure that's going to be where we're going to review and see what more we can do.
All right, thank you so much for joining me tonight, Minister.
You bet. Thank you.